Welcome to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. In this episode, I'm joined by Joe Emery. Joe built a successful career as a copywriter working for big brands. However, after being made redundant, more recently he's become known for openly sharing his experience as he's tried to find a job with some 5,000 applications and the impact that that's had on his life, not just financially, but physically and also on his mental health. So welcome to the Midlife Men podcast, Joe.
Thank you.
I see you built a career as a copywriter over many years. So what was life like before you were made redundant? And then, what happened when you suddenly found yourself without a job?
Yeah, life was good. I was made redundant from Virgin Media O2. I'd just been promoted to senior copywriter there, and they got rid of a couple of thousand between summer and Christmas, and I was part of that chop. But there was always contract jobs to fall back on. But when I was made redundant this time, I knew it would be difficult because we were amid the bloodbath of redundancies that were happening at all these big tech firms. So I knew it would be difficult, and I was stressed out when I found out, but I never thought it'd be this difficult.
So you weren't alone then. There were other people, colleagues or people you knew in the industry that were also losing their jobs.
Yeah. I think Virgin Media O2, I think they got rid of about 3,000 between that summer and Christmas a couple of years ago. And there was also all the big tech layoffs that just started a wave of redundancies in tech, and then even all the other sectors followed suit after that.
And did you expect to find another job fairly quickly, fairly easily? Was it a shock when you didn't?
Yeah, I expected to find a job fairly easily. I never knew it'd be that hard. But yeah, that was a couple of years ago, and since then, I've really only managed to pick up kind of scraps of work on one short-term contract.
And so, you've applied for a lot of jobs. And when I mentioned 5,000, which is, I think, a number that I've heard, you've applied for that many, and I guess and more. That's a huge amount of applications.
Well, that's just on LinkedIn, because I wrote an article for the Telegraph, and they asked me how many jobs have I applied for, and I said, well, I've got no idea. But then I remembered that you can check on LinkedIn, and it was at 5,000. It was over 5,000, and that's not including, that's just the quick applies. So that's not including everything else. So that figure is probably well north of that figure.
I mean, that's incredible in a kind of terrible way. That's incredible that.
I was quite shocked when I saw it. Yeah.
And what sort of experience have you had? I mean, do you get rejections, or do you just hear nothing? What's the general experience?
No, you don't. If you apply for a job, you rarely get a rejection letter, and if you do, it's kind of in the form of a template. But I've even had some interviews, and they've sent me a template rejection email. That's happened at a big company, one of the most famous brands in Britain. I interviewed for them, and they just sent me a tired rejection email. Not this time, thanks anyway, with the kind of zero personalization and zero feedback. And I don't expect companies to reply to every applicant, because they haven't got the human power to do that. It would take them too long. But if they interview someone, and this company, I don't know if I can mention them, but I'm happy to. I don't know how you feel about that, but this company would have only interviewed about 8 copywriters.
So it was a fairly personal, small, exercise, and your expectation would be you would get something.
To reply to 8 people, I'm sure they could have done that. Yeah.
I mean, even, my experience having applied for some jobs, senior jobs, I could put 2 or 3 hours effort into an application, and not even get a confirmation, not even an automated thank you. I mean, how common is that?
Yeah, that's common as well. But yeah, the length of time some of these applications take is ridiculous. You've got to create an account, then check your email, activate it, create a password, fill in all these questions about whether I believe in God, am trans, fancy men, women, both, black, white, Muslim, Christian. So yeah, it's a long process. And when you get in nowhere, it feels particularly frustrating. Yeah.
How has I've employed people in my time. I wasn't treating people this way. How have we got to the point where organizations, as you said, big brands, well-known companies, are kind of failing in the way that they manage people who are applying to join their organization? How have we got to this place?
I think it's just that they hold all the aces at the moment. So it's a very employer's market. You know, they don't need to reply to everyone because they know they'd put out a job the next day and they'll get thousands of applicants. And as well, one thing as well is the tasks that I've been asked to do. That's before I've even promised an interview. So I've applied for jobs and they've come back with tasks that would have taken me 5 days to complete. And I've just said, no, I'm not spending 5 days unpaid on a task that I might not even get an interview for. And that's really common.
So you've written and spoken very candidly about your experience and about rejection. And that's, I've followed you on LinkedIn for a while. What made you decide to share your experience, so honestly?
Oh, that's a good question. I shared my experience once and I put my phone to one side, went straight to sleep. And I woke up in the morning and that post had gone absolutely bonkers. So I kind of accidentally found out that sharing my experience resonates with people.
And that was a surprise, was it, when you put
A
that
real
out
surprise.
there?
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking like a copywriter because as a copywriter, it's my job to get attention and get people to act on their emotions. But when I wrote this post, I wasn't even thinking like a copywriter. I just said it how it was. And the opening line to the post was, "I'm desperate for work."
And did you get a lot of support, a lot of positive messages off the back of that?
Mostly positive, yeah. I mean, that post got 11 million views and about 80,000 comments. Mostly positive, but there are a few bad eggs out there. And as well, since my media appearances, I've been on GB News. I wrote an article for the Telegraph. I went on BBC Radio 4, and I went on LBC to be interviewed. I've had an absolute tirade of abuse on social media as well, but most people have been kind.
Why do you think that is? Why would someone go out of their way to say something negative based on the fact that you're just looking for a job and happy to talk about your experience?
Well, I always think people like that are deflecting their own insecurities. Bullies like that, and I don't wish to stereotype here, but it's 99.9% of the time it's men, and it's men of a certain age. So I honestly do think there's a real kind of toxic masculinity problem in men with a certain age, probably due to the fact that the way they was brought up, machoism was rewarded. If you throw your weight around, you're a proper man. So I put it down to kind of social conditioning in the kind of 80s.
So that's kind of midlife men really you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's always Gen X males. I mean 99.9% of the time it's men kind of mid 40s to 50s. You just guarantee, and every problematic comment I get on LinkedIn, they're always cut from the same cloth. And I've kind of mentioned this before, and it's a few people bad like not all men. Of course, not all men. I know tons of men that age that are really good, nice, kind, empathetic people. But yeah, it's kind of I think it's that low emotional intelligence as well that makes them do that.
I mean, that's interesting because the focus for this podcast is men of that sort of age group, not necessarily around what you're talking about. But it is a big problem. It is a big problem, the way that social conditioning and the way that men of that age perhaps think about all sorts of things, not least mental health. I mean, what sort of impact has this had on you?
Yeah, I mean, it's had a terrible impact on my mental health. I ended up in a psychiatric unit, and yeah, we really should be supporting men. No wonder why so many are dying by suicide. And then you've got a load of men pulling down other men for being open about their emotions and stuff. But no wonder why the suicide rate is so high. But yeah, it's had an enormous, I mean, self-harming, suicidal thoughts, psychiatric care. It wasn't just the financial toll. The financial toll was being finances wiped. The mental toll was being battling depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. The physical toll was being self-harm, eczema, grinding a chip in my tooth, high blood pressure, which is now medicated. So it's had an enormous effect, as you said at the start, mentally, financially, and physically.
And things like, I mean, that's incredibly shocking. But things like, that perhaps some of the underlying causes of that, do you think they're related to things like understanding your self-worth? You invest in your career, you have a successful career, you kind of have confidence based on the fact that people are paying you to do a good job, and then all that goes. I mean, what does that do, without this being an obvious question, to your kind of sense of identity, really, your sense of self-worth?
Yeah, I mean, confidence was just about hanging in there. It had been beaten for sure. Um, but where I was physically, mentally, and financially broken, I just about managed to hold on to my confidence, and always knew deep down that I am a top writer and I'm talented and skilled in that area. Um, but yeah, the level of that confidence for sure went down.
And I mean, there are no doubt a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of women, who are probably in a similar situation to you, but perhaps not really talking about it. There's a lot of silence around this. Why do you think that might be?
Well, that's why I think my LinkedIn post resonated with people, because they go on LinkedIn and they only see people, oh, I've just hired my 20th hire in a new office in Dubai and stuff. I woke up at 5 a.m. for an ice bath, deep journaling, and a 5 mile run, before a client meeting with New York and Paris. It's people, you only see the good, and LinkedIn is especially is like a highlight reel, isn't it, of people's achievements. And I think that really resonated with people to see some brutal honesty. But yeah, it's true. I mean, we're conditioned not to do that on social media. And I think when I started doing it, it was a real pleasant surprise for people to see some honesty rather than, you know, just a highlight reel.
What do you think, employers, companies should be doing differently? Because what they are doing obviously is not having a great effect on people looking for jobs.
Well, the obvious answer is to create more vacancies, but we've been in constant crisis since 2020 with COVID, war in Ukraine, Brexit, cost of living crisis, political incompetence, you name it, we've been through it. But that would be the obvious answer. But I think just treating job seekers with more empathy. But as I said, it's as if like they feel they definitely hold all the aces at the moment, and people are desperate for work. So I think that kind of common courtesy has slipped because they know that they hold all the aces.
But there's an irony, isn't there, in that, corporate wellness and, interest in the mental health of staff is quite high profile at the moment. And yet people may be coming into the organisation, or the whole recruitment process is perhaps the polar opposite of that. Is that irony lost, do you think, on senior management teams and HR directors?
Yeah, because they all bang on about mental health now. But it's funny, from my experience, it's the ones that go on about mental health and wellness days and that, and all these like benefits, perks for mental health and that, they're full of the worst people. And I found that it's the businesses that go about it quietly are full of kind of people who actually do care about your mental health. Yeah. Because I've had some torrid experiences from at one big British company that are always going on about mental health and wellness. And I had two managers who were just horrible bullies.
I guess in a way that's a bit of at least you spotted that in the interview process, because if that's what they're like in the interview process, imagine what they're like if you worked there.
Oh no, this is going back a few years. This was actually
Right.
a job. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Right.
experienced it. Yeah. Yeah.
And what about we talked a bit earlier about the recruitment process, but we've got things like AI, algorithms that are scanning your CV. So perhaps you're not even getting through to a human. You've got, ghosting. A colleague, an acquaintance of mine, he's on his 8th interview. If you can't decide whether you want to employ someone after 7 interviews, what's wrong with you? What are you looking for? And also this lack of feedback, as you said. I mean, how can we improve that process without it being an obvious question?
Well, yeah, I don't expect them to get back to every applicant because they're getting thousands, but it would be nice it would be nice if they could, but I just don't think it's possible. And I think that's unreasonable to ask. But especially when you get past that first stage, there needs to be more consideration for people. And where I've been asked to do tasks that are taking me 5 days, I've just said no. And I've actually had other copywriters message me and said, "Oh, did you get the task from this company?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I turned it down." They said, "Oh, I turned it down too." So if you're asking experienced copywriters with a wealth of experience and a large portfolio behind them to do tasks, you're going to miss out on top talent.
So are they just taking the piss? Are they just, or are they? Do you think they genuinely believe that this is the right process? And
They probably generally believe that's the right way, but who else? I don't know any other trades. I don't really know any other people that are asked to work for free. I mean, you wouldn't ask. Can you imagine if you asked a plumber to come around and fix your toilet and say, "Oh, if I like how you've done it, I might give you my nan's kitchen sink to do." Unless you fancied a smack in the mouth, you wouldn't ask, would you? But it's different for marketeers and copywriters somehow.
Yeah. And talking about, perhaps coping mechanisms or how you've coped with it. I mean, you've explained that, at extreme points, you've been in the psychiatric ward, you've had suicidal ideation. How have you found any coping methods to help? I know that you have a Bond film enthusiasm, and you like the Beatles and West Ham. I mean, what advice would you give? I
Well,
guess
West Ham definitely isn't a coping mechanism. That makes things worse. Being a West Ham fan. But yeah, I've mindfulness is great. Hypnotherapy is great. I mean, hypnotherapy's changed my life. And I think the biggest thing I could say is if you're struggling, be around people, because the worst thing you could do is hold yourself up and be alone. You need to be around people. You need to go down the pub, even though you don't want to be in a social setting. You need to be around family. You need to be around people you love and people who love you.
Tell us more about the hypnotherapy.
Yeah, so I started writing for a hypnotherapist in London who's got an app, and I'd never really I because hypnotherapy was never readily available, was it? It was always a cost a fortune, and this guy who I write for, I think he charges about £300, and he's treated a lot of celebrities. But he's got an app, and it's really good, and it's really helped me. And I've also downloaded Paul McKenna's app, and imagine, I mean, how much is Paul McKenna an hour? Probably five grand or something upwards of that. But now you can get hypnotherapy in your pocket. You can get life-changing hypnotherapy in your pocket. So I after I've discovered hypnotherapy, I see that hypnotherapy has the power to kind of banish fears, help you reach your dreams. It's really powerful stuff. And then I was a bit skeptical, listening to the playlist at first, but after I saw the results, yeah, and it doesn't take long to see the results either.
So you recommend trying that, because I think a lot of people might just not really understand.
No, for sure. It's not. There's no black magic. There's no witchcraft. There's no kind of guy dangling a pendulum in front of you. It's probably hypnotherapy might have a bit of a bad name of being a bit wacky and out there, but that's probably a myth around hypnotherapy. But I would encourage anyone, if you've got a fear, if you've got a habit you want to break, whether it's biting your nails, smoking, drinking, gambling, fear of spiders and stuff, there's something for you. There's something for everyone. Yeah.
Have you, I know you've had kind of professional help, but have you come across any organisations that men listening to this might be able to get some help from? Groups of people perhaps who are in similar situations, or maybe just general groups who help, men with challenges.
I think it's very hard to get the help you need on the NHS at the moment, because we all know that NHS is under strain after years and years of underfunding. But I'm just not. I wasn't getting the help I need from the NHS. I was on a waiting list for therapy. They wanted to send me for an ADHD test, and the waiting list for ADHD test was 3 years. And I'm still on the waiting list all these months later for talking therapies. So it's very hard. So yeah, get yourself down on that list, but don't expect a quick appointment or anything. So yeah, I haven't really explored the other ones, but there are some groups out there, and yeah, I would encourage you to get amongst those people and socialise.
I mean, there are quite a few men's groups. So Andy's Man Club is probably one of the most well-known ones. So I guess, and they will provide general support across the board, really, not just for, helping finding a new job, but just that support. And as you said, you can't shut yourself away, because I guess it just magnifies the situation. You need to get out of your head occasionally. So if someone's listening to this in a similar situation, perhaps they've been looking for a job for, a year, 6 months, work longer, and they're just feeling completely demoralized, depressed, maybe more. What, based on your experience, what's one thing they could do to kind of just keep motivated?
Well, to keep motivated, I would say do all those things do all the things I've been talking about. But I would say what would really help you is just to be honest on LinkedIn about your situation, because that's what I did. And I don't, if I wasn't honest about my situation, I think I'd still be in a deep, dark hole. But I've managed to climb out of it. I mean, it's going to be a long way back for me financially, but I've managed to, there is some light at the tunnel now, and it's all through being honest on LinkedIn. So I would encourage anyone, because we're encouraged not to talk about those things on social media. We're encouraged not to talk about those things in life, let alone social media. So be brutally honest, and I think it could help you. It could get you to where you want to get to, because people resonate with it, people appreciate it, and as well, people know that with all the redundancies happening, I think another reason why people resonated with so much, because they know that they could have a meeting put in their calendar that afternoon with HR and told it's over. So we're all just one meeting away from the tables turning.
And do you think, there's a lot of fear at the moment about AI replacing you, and, jobs are going to completely change, and none of us have the tools for that. What degree of reality do you think there is in that?
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, AI is scary. And what's even scarier, that it's going to get better. I mean, it's very powerful at the moment, but the fact that it's going to get better is quite scary. But I'm just hanging in there. And I believe that, I'm just hoping that people will become so sick of AI, seeing AI generate, because it is everywhere, isn't it? AI generated content. Even in your inbox, I see sales emails from businesses where they've used an AI model, AI text, AI voiceover. It's everywhere. So I'm just hoping that people will get so sick of AI and they'll want that human interaction again. But yeah, only time will tell. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared about it, because it does scare me. And the thought of it, I liken it to kind of Thatcher's coal mine closures in the 80s, but on a scale times a billion. That ripped through a few communities in England. I'm really worried that AI is going to rip through the whole world.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an unknown at the moment, and has the potential to be terrifying, but also for good as well. And I guess, maybe the balanced view needs to be appreciated. And I know you're not a careers advisor, but what about things like retraining? I mean, a friend of mine struggling to get a job in finance, and he decided to retrain as a plumber. I mean, do you think there's validity in, stop if you can't get a job doing what you've been doing for 10 years? Is there validity in just trying to do something else? Maybe make yourself more.
Yeah, I think so. But it takes money to retrain. So I was talking to a driver instructor the other day, and it cost him about $5,000 to retrain. So retraining is easier said than done. But if you've got the money, yeah, I would say go for it. But then you need to pick a career that's AI proof. And I think plumbing is quite AI proof at the moment. But it's just as well, it's kind of, I find it, I feel for kind of school leavers. I mean, what do they study at university that's going to be AI proof? What career do they pick that's going to be AI proof? I mean, you've probably got people dreaming of becoming illustrators and writers, and they're thinking, well, hold on, AI might replace me in a few years. So, the jobs that are AI proof, army, police, paramedic, plumber, other trades. Not everyone wants to do those. So I really feel kind of for kids who have got their, you know, set their dreams on becoming a graphic designer, for instance, but they're thinking, oh, hold on, do I need to become a plumber instead? Which could be completely kind of not their bag at all.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of uncertainty out there. Just going back briefly to your impact on LinkedIn and your impact that you've had on, you said 11 million views on your post, and was it 80,000 comments?
Yeah, one post that was, yeah.
So you've had a big impact on a lot of people, and probably many more that didn't comment and you don't know about. So I'm surprised that more people haven't followed suit. And I know your advice is be open, be honest on LinkedIn. And I agree with you. My experience as well is it's almost becoming a bit like, people perceive Instagram. It's only the very positive view of your life, and everyone's seems to be more successful and earning more money and, has a much better life. And of course that's toxic in its own right. So do you think tools like LinkedIn, are they still relevant? I mean, if you've applied for 5,000 jobs on LinkedIn and you didn't get one, does that mean that actually as a recruitment tool, it's not very effective?
No, I mean, without LinkedIn, I don't know where I'd be. So I still think LinkedIn is, I mean, you've got the biggest networking tool in the world, and you can reach millions of people in the palm of your hand. So it's the equivalent of going to a networking event down the pub, but times how many million, how many people on LinkedIn. So no, I would still say LinkedIn is really important, but the problem with the job application is there's just not enough vacancies around. And after all the redundancies that have been going on, there's a hell of a lot of candidates out there.
And I guess a lot of people don't have savings. A lot of people are 2 or 3 months away from defaulting on mortgages, debts, and that's terrifying. And I guess that's what puts people into, depression spirals and more. So it's very difficult to know what you can do about that, apart from perhaps being prepared and trying to plan for the future. And as you said, maybe think about AI-proof jobs, or, perhaps getting out there and, perhaps, relighting connections in your network, and just trying to make sure that if something does happen, as you said, we're all one meeting away, that you are more prepared. Let me just finish by asking you then, Joe, what's next for you then? Because you've had a lot of high profile exposure. You're a well-known voice, influencer in this area now. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm hoping my life's turned around after my media appearances on GB News and the Telegraph, LBC Radio, BBC Radio. I really hope I've turned a corner now, but I won't stop fighting for people who are out of work, who are suffering with their mental health, and I won't stop trying to make these conversations the norm, because I think you just said that it's surprising that people haven't followed me and be more honest on LinkedIn. I mean, you rarely see that on LinkedIn. So yeah, more people need to do it. And we need to normalize these conversations and stop shaming people, because as I said, I've had a lot of kind comments, but I've also had, especially after kind of the Telegraph article, because they post it on social media and GB News post it on their social media channels. And I went through the comments and it was just abuse after abuse after abuse. So I kind of feel sorry for people in the public eye who get a lot of abuse, because I've had kind of one public eye experience and I received an absolute tsunami of abuse.
But have you managed to, not take that personally? Do you see it?
Yeah, I just stopped reading, but I take it as a compliment. If someone takes time out of their day to read my story, follow me, invest in me, spend their time and energy in me, I take it as a compliment. And I actually thank them. I thank them for taking time out of their day to give me their attention. And because nothing disarms a bully faster than kindness.
I saw evidence of that just yesterday, actually. Well, look, Joe, I think you're starting a movement here. There's an opportunity to start a movement, to groundswell against this.
Yeah, and I want to help, guys with mental health. The suicide rate is shocking, and it's mainly men, isn't it, taking their lives? So I really want to do something to try and, I won't stop until it's my mission to reduce that rate. Encourage open conversations about mental health and normalize feeling vulnerable and normalize asking for help, because that's what I had to do on LinkedIn. I had to be honest. I said, I'm desperate. I need help. And it really helped me.
And that's the very essence of this podcast, actually. It's to normalize that discussion and make people realize it's not a weakness. It's actually, it's a strength to admit that you need help. And especially, as you said, for men who are perhaps a bit older, or for any men, mental illness doesn't care about how old you are or what sex you are. But yeah, there's definitely more. That's more to be done. Well, in the show notes, we'll put some links as well to organisations that can help. And of course, if you do feel like suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, then speak to your GP, or there are organisations you can call, and we'll put those numbers in the show notes.
Yeah, and they can speak to me as well. My inbox is always open to help people. So,
and is the best way to contact you via LinkedIn?
Yeah, give me a shout on LinkedIn, and I'll do everything I can. I've got a large network now, so if you need me to share posts, create a post about you, or if it's just general support, talking about what you're going through, I'm more than happy to do that.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for being really open and honest with us. And I wish you luck. Wish you well. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Midlife Man podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. If you want to contact Joe, you can find him on LinkedIn under Joe Emery Writes Full Bomb Fans Only. If you or someone you know is struggling, there are organisations you can contact, such as Andy's Man Club and Tough to Talk in the UK, and the Face It Foundation in the US. But there are lots of others around the world that you can find through a simple online search. To help raise the profile of the podcast, it really helps if you can review the show, and please do share it with your networks. And if you have a story to share, then do contact me through the website mid-lifemen.com.